This is Colin Dixon, and I'm speaking to you from IBC 2017, and I just moderated a fascinating discussion with Michiel Bakker, who is CEO of Ginx TV UK. Now, Michiel, introduce us to Ginx TV. What is Ginx?
Ginx eSports TV is a linear 24/7 eSports television channel that reaches 47 million households today in the world. Most of them are in Europe. And we are programming it with a mission almost to say we want to bring a more mainstream TV audience to esports. Because if esports wants to continue to grow, it will also have to reach out in people who are not necessarily core esports fans. And we see our mission to really drive into that.
So give us an idea of how big esports has become.
It's insane. How it's gone unnoticed, really. But there are the numbers I quoted at IBC today were 200 million active participants in esports, and then 200 million people who watch those active participants play games. So that makes for a universe of 400 million. Now, even if those numbers are 10% off, that makes for a significant number of participants in this sport. And it's miraculous that it's sort of grown to that level without proper mainstream attention.
Now, one of the biggest things that you deliver on your television channel is the tournaments. So talk a little bit about the tournaments.
Well, the tournaments are amazing. I mean, if you take at the pinnacle of tournaments, there's the international, the Dota 2 International that took place last month in Seattle, was absolutely magnificent with 60,000 people in a stadium watching this tournament. And it's just really to see the sort of passion on the faces of people and the shouts of support for their favorite players. It's incredible. There's an incredible connection between what is largely a millennial audience or a Gen Z audience with these players. And I find it exciting to see when you take people there for the first time or when they see it for the first time, is the surprise on people's faces from the mainstream media to say, what's going on? And that's fabulous. So we put those tournaments onto our channel. Sometimes we take them live as they are. So the international was 60 hours of live content. But sometimes we cut it down to a 3-hour précis of what the tournament was. We provide extra commentary around it, some explanatory commentary, or we basically show highlights in our live shows. I mean, increasingly our channel is live. It has to be for that audience, basically.
So one of the biggest problems that you have is that the gaming crowd is very tribal, right? So how do you program a channel when you have so many different factions, as it were, vying for time?
It's a challenge, and you point. It's a very good question. How do you program a challenge for the tribes of Dota and the tribes of Counter-Strike and the tribes of League at the same time? And the way we go about it is we experiment a lot, and whether we segment our programming and clearly signpost which game we're going to be talking about in the next 20 minutes, so that the audience knows when they come in and they see what it is, that they're interested in them or not, they go out and they come back when we talk about their favorite game. But it does mean you're playing with an audience. The other thing we're trying to do is to schedule shows that really build the bridges between these tribes. So one show is actually literally called The Bridge for that purpose, where we try to bring cross-game people, and not that many cross-game people that know as much as there is to know about League as there is to know about Counter-Strike. But there are a few who are good commentators who really understand both those worlds, and then we try to experiment with that. But ultimately, you're talking about a fragmentation of the audience, and you try to bring that fragmented audience together in one place. And by being, by the way, dedicated to esports and being the home of esports on TV, at least there's a place in that sort of vast amount of channels that people have that they can call home.
Okay, so Ginx is pretty well distributed now on a number of different systems in Europe, right? That's where it's primarily got its distribution.
Yeah. So I mean, we started off with distribution in Indonesia and other places in the Far East, and then we Turkey followed, and then we sort of moved into Western Europe, really, and we're now in 47 million households, soon to be 51 million households. We're going to launch on another DTH platform. We're getting the gold standard guys, the Skies, the Virgins, the DSTVs, the OSNs. These are all platforms that are reputable, gold standard, multi-channel platforms that are now carrying our channel. We've also recently launched on Sony's PS View service in the States, and in Canada we worked with Super Channel, a company called Super Channel, to effectively replace one of their 4 channels in their bouquet with Ginx, a bespoke channel for Canada. So, our mission we won't rest until we are in all the homes in the world. But for now, we are in 51 million and growing fast.
And the game producers, they're big sponsors of the channel?
The game producers are not, in a sense, they're buying advertising from time to time. The publishers, as I would say, they buy advertising around their games. I mean, they're very sort of regular businesses in the sense of releasing games. EA will release games on regular intervals, so will Bethesda. Microsoft is coming on board as a sponsor. So the gaming industry, is engaging with us and is a source of revenue for us. But the biggest relationship we have, of course, is a symbiotic marketing content relationship between us helping to give more exposures to games and tournaments into an audience that is otherwise not necessarily reached. And that sort of sets the kind of the financial relationship between us. And it's symbiosis. We live in each other's orbits, and it's changing. It is never a stable, kind of relationship, because people change their mindsets. But for some publishers, the marketing objective of making their game the biggest game in the world is the biggest objective, the biggest KPI for the company. In which case, if I come along with 47 million households,
and you're helpful in helping them do that, indeed.
So that then leads to healthy content relationships. And but I said this morning in my session, you have to get a lot of people in the tent. It's a lot about relationships. People have to trust you with their IP. There's a lot of passion, obviously a lot of passion on the side of the publishers about the games they make, and you have to earn their trust. It's not automatically given to you. So if you rock up and say, I have an eSports channel, and they will want to know whether you know your stuff and whether you treat their IP with respect and whether you put the right commentators around it. And if you do, and you show that, then the relationship blossoms.
So it looks like lots more growth in the future for eSports on TV?
I'd say so. And relentless. We're of course an early stage company still, but we have big investors behind us who have big aspirations for us. ITV, Sky, both of them for different reasons are inside Ginx. But both want to connect with the millennial audience. Sky is, of course, more of a sports broadcaster and comes at it from a sports angle more than ITV does. But yes, eSports itself has an enormous amount of growing to do, enormous amount of growing up to do also in that same time. And eSports on broadcast media is only going to take more shelf life. As this millennial and Gen Z audience grows up, they're just going to bring it with them. And whether you like it or not, it's going to come to a TV set near you.
Well, thank you very much for telling us about it, and I hope you'll come back and give us an update next year.
My pleasure.
Thank you. This has been Colin Dixon with End Screen Media.